Welcome back to another FPL Best Wildcard Team, this time out of Double Gameweek 34, and this podcast is recorded on the Thursday, so just take that into account. There could be a few injuries happening on the Thursday night matches. I'll keep you updated in the comment section down below and discuss Erling Haaland, who I also talked about in my team selection video and podcast. Be sure to check that out, the transfer tips, the best free hit team, and all of my content for Double Gameweek 34, including the deadline stream on Saturday. Tune in for that as well. Smash the like button of this video and subscribe for new. Let's get this to the 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 25k subscribers and beyond. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Reluctantly, I'd still go for David Raya if you want a goalkeeper who doubles in Game Week 34, but if you are bench boosting in Game Week 37 and you're more focused on that double instead, I would perhaps go for two goalkeepers who double in that game week instead and go for a Nana instead of David Raya. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but I still prefer Arsenal defensively over Manchester United, but there's no doubt that Arsenal are crumbling over the last week. It all started with that first leg against Bayern Munich. A lot of cracks started to show, and their impeccable defence from 2024 has really started to look shaky. They're also struggling to score goals, which was shown and evidenced against Aston Villa, and in the second leg against Bayern Munich. They need to get their act together against Wolves away and Chelsea at home, and Arsenal can win all the remaining games. Will they? Probably not, but they still can win the Premier League title, and it's all down to them and their mentality, which certainly is under question over the last couple of years. I would go for David Raya as the main goalkeeper, and as the backup who doubles in Game Week 37, I'd still go for Dubravka, and Newcastle have kept 2 clean sheets in a row, and maybe they're starting to find a bit of form, a bit similar to what they did last season, and it could be really useful, especially with those great fixtures until the end of the season and that double in Game Week 37, which isn't the best on paper from a defensive perspective, but if I'm looking to cover the Newcastle defence, it's either Fabian Schär in that heart of that defence, or I'd go for Dubravka, who offers even better value at around 4.2 million. In terms of FPL points, the top 3 defenders are all from Arsenal, and Gabriel being the cheapest, offering the best value. That's why I've gone for him instead of Ben White or Saliba, but if you have the extra funds, I don't mind going for one of those 2 players instead. I just think Gabriel is probably the best option to go for, and I still think Arsenal can turn things around, but it's definitely a massive risk, and doubling up on any defence this season hasn't really paid off unless you've doubled up on the Gunners defensively from January up until March. Their Premier League record is still very impressive in 2024, 9 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss, but the remaining 6 games are quite tough, and the main reason why I've doubled up on Arsenal defensively is because of their double in Game Week 34 and 1 or 2 decent fixtures on paper like Bournemouth at home in Game Week 36, but the way they're defending, they might struggle to keep any clean sheets for the remainder of this campaign. I'm also going to go for an injured out in Aït-Nouri, but let's keep an eye out for future updates and see what Gary O'Neill says. He was very bullish that Aït-Nouri would play in Game Week 33 against Nottingham Forest and that he'd be in the squad. That didn't turn out to be the case. He wasn't even on the bench, but I'm very confident he will feature in Double Game Week 34 and potentially start both games, and he could be one of the very best defenders that have a double for 34. A good fixture the following week against Luton Town as well, so I still like Aït-Nouri, but he is quite an injury prone player, and that is a shame, of course. Now, the other 3 defender slots are going to be quite interesting. There's going to be some bold picks in here potentially, and one of them is Gvardiol, and with Nathan Ake now back, that could spell some trouble for Gvardiol, but he's been one of Man City's best players in recent weeks, even against Real Madrid as Man City crashed out of the Champions League. I think the Croatian played quite well despite being booked, and he's offering great value at 4.8 million, but will he start every single game from now until the end of the season, including both games in Game Week 37? I'm not so sure, but if you were to go for a Man City defender, Gvardiol would certainly be my top pick. And to cover Double Game Week 35 and 37, I'm going for a cheap option here in Malo Gusto. His FPL points haven't been that great, but he has potential with the assists, bonus points, and Chelsea have been in decent form, especially for their standards. They're unbeaten in 8 Premier League games right now. They sometimes drop points to the worst teams like Burnley and Sheffield United, but they are capable of some good results, as you saw against Everton, a 6-0 win, a very good performance, but something we've learned over the years is not to trust Chelsea. They're still a work in progress. It's a young team and they show a lot of immaturity, which was also evidenced by that penalty fiasco with Palmer, Madueke and Jackson. So there's only one defender slot left, and I have to say, this might surprise some of you, but he doubles in 37. There are some great fixtures for Manchester United, and that's why I'm going for Dalot. But Manchester United just concede so many shots and chances every single game, and that's why I don't want to double up with Onana and Dalot. It's one or the other, in my opinion, and I would go for Dalot and double up on Arsenal defensively, but that could certainly change over the next few weeks. Let me know what you think of this defensive line. Is there anything you would change? If you want another double Gameweek 34 defender, then going for Trent or Virgil van Dijk could certainly pay off, but I wouldn't want them from Gameweek 35 until Gameweek 38. I have gone for the Arsenal triple up with Bukayo Saka, but his level has dropped in recent weeks, and I've only got him for that double in Gameweek 34. He's a good placeholder for Heung-min Son for Spurs' doubles in Gameweek 35 and 37. So you buy Saka on the wildcard for Gameweek 34, and you sell one of him or Salah to Heung-min Son. It's no secret that I'd still go for Mohamed Salah on the wildcard for this game week. He's another one who's experiencing some pretty poor form, but I would back Salah to bounce back and for Liverpool to respond after a devastating week for them, losing to Atalanta 3-0 at home and then losing to Crystal Palace 1-0 at Anfield. That's something you rarely see. Both Arsenal and Liverpool have gone 2 games without scoring a goal, and I think that could change. Of course, by the time this video and podcast is released, we'll see how Liverpool fare in the second leg against Atalanta. If they were to make a comeback, which I won't rule out, I think Liverpool could really go on to win the Premier League if they were able to make that comeback. It's massive for the confidence, and momentum swings so quickly, especially in the Premier League. Now, there's 3 midfielder slots left, and this is where things get very interesting because you want to strike a balance between the doubles in 34, 35 and 37, and you can't forget the single game mix in 36 and 38. But one player that is absolutely essential for me is still Phil Foden, and I do like him against Brighton away. I think he's a great option for that, and I don't see him being rotated very often, and in fact I actually think he's going to start every single game unless an injury or illness happens. He's so integral to Manchester City this season, and he's been their best player alongside Rodri. The other midfielder that's essential for me is Cole Palmer, and it might seem harsh to leave out Anthony Gordon. You can still bring him in around Gameweek 35, but the way I've structured this is to strike that balance between Gameweek 34 and the other doubles, and that's why I'm going to go for arguably the best midfielder on paper besides the obvious Salahs and Sakas of the world. I'm going for Eze with a decent double against West Ham and Newcastle, and just like with Saka, he could be a placeholder for Anthony Gordon around Gameweek 35 or 36. That could mean some hits need to be taken, but I don't think you need to take too many to set up very well for all the doubles and to have a very solid foundation until the end of the season. But Cole Palmer is essential. You saw it on Monday, and he's the highest scoring player in FPL at this moment in time. He probably will end up being the highest scoring player despite starting the season with a price tag of 5 million. Eze is kind of a single game week punt. You could argue the same for Saka. If you wanted to focus more on the future doubles like 37, you could actually just drop down Saka and go for Heung-min Son from the get-go, and that could be your way of approaching it. But if I was wildcarding, I'd go for this midfield 5. You've got variety, some quality players in there with a lot of potential, doubles in Gameweek 34, and of course in the case of Foden and Palmer, decent fixtures this week, and also doubles later on in the season. Great fixtures. There's a lot to like with this midfield 5, and ultimately I'd bring in Anthony Gordon and Heung-min Son over the next couple of weeks. Isak has been incredible recently, there's no denying that. The only issues I would find with Isak, and it's always been the case with him, is 1, his injury record, which is very poor during his time at Newcastle, and 2, Callum Wilson has actually returned to training now since that February injury he picked up. So that could spell some trouble for Isak in terms of rotation. There might be 1 or 2 games where he's dropped to the bench, but if Isak can stay fit, I'd actually back him to start the vast majority of games, be benched in potentially 1 match, and even on the left-hand side to accommodate Wilson down the middle, Isak can still be a great FPL asset, and with the form he's in, there's no way that Newcastle drop him to the bench, and that front three of Barnes, Gordon and Isak is really working well. There's no need to change a winning formula, so in my opinion, Callum Wilson will be on the bench and come on to build up his fitness, whilst Isak is the main striker and penalty taker. Now the next forward is someone who doubles in Gameweek 34, and I'm going for Mateta and that double up in Crystal Palace offensively. I like those fixtures so much, but if I'm being honest, I'd rather go for Cunha. So if you have the funds, go for Cunha over Mateta, but they're both good options for Double Gameweek 34, as highlighted in the best free hit team video and podcast the other day. The final forward is Erling Haaland, but he is an injury doubt now. He asked to be substituted against Real Madrid. The same goes for De Bruyne and Akanji, so that could be problematic for Manchester City. Let's see if Haaland starts in the FA Cup semi-final against Chelsea, and if he does, you could argue that he could be benched against Brighton away in Game Week 34, but I still back Erling Haaland to be a great option until the end of the season. It's just that injury which could be quite concerning, really, and if he were to miss out and maybe the injury becomes serious, you could replace him with Cunha for Game Week 34, and I still think some options who double in 37 like Rasmus Haaland could be interesting, but I believe that he's only had one shot since his return from injury, so Haaland has been very disappointing, and if possible, if Haaland is fit and there's nothing wrong with him, I definitely go for him on the wild card. He's probably the best captaincy option on paper for Game Week 37 alongside Heung-min Son, and the fixtures for Manchester City are so good. I could see Haaland scoring in every single game if he stays fit and starts every single one of them, which I believe he will. So let's keep an eye out for future updates on Erling Haaland. If he's out, I'd be tempted by Cunha for this week, or even Dominic Solanke as a 1 or 2 game week punt. So those would be the two main strikers to replace Erling Haaland, and of course, like I mentioned earlier, if you have the funds right now, go for Cunha over Mateta. Let's now head over to Drafthound and see what they're recommending for the best wildcard team, and after that, I'll show you the starting 11 for my wildcard squad and also the captaincy for Game Week 34. Check out all the links in the description below, including Drafthound, which is a great resource. Many of you are signing up using my link and talking about how helpful and fun the website is to use with all the tools at your disposal. And as you can see, they show you the best wildcard and free hit team for every single week. And for the wildcard, they've currently gone for Henderson, White, Mitchell, Rico Lewis, Salah, Odegaard, Diaz, Havertz, Palmer, Darwin, Solanke, Pickford, Isak, Gvardiol, and Maguire. They've ordered the starting 11 already, recommended Salah as the best captaincy option and Odegaard as the vice. I have to say, there's a few things I disagree with, but one thing I like a lot by Drafthound with their wildcard team is their pick of Odegaard. I think he's a great option for Double Gameweek 34. Despite Arsenal crumbling in recent weeks, he has been fantastic in every single game, and I think those fixtures against Wolves and Chelsea really suit Martin Odegaard. So if any Arsenal player were to step up, I think he'll be the Norwegian captain who has been incredible in this calendar year. Now, the picks I don't really agree with are Mitchell and Henderson. I think going for one Crystal Palace defensive coverage is already enough, and even then, I wouldn't recommend it on the free hit. Only Munoz on your bench potentially, or Mitchell, but I'm not a big fan of doubling up on their defense. Rico Lewis has been great recently, but I don't see him starting every single game, but maybe with Akanji having an issue and asking to be substituted, that could open the doors for Rico Lewis to start 1 or 2 more Premier League games. I like the Havertz pick still, but I'm more keen on Odegaard. Diaz is a great pick, same with Palmer, of course. Ben White is arguably the best Arsenal defender if you can afford it. Salah's the captain is obviously standard stuff. Solanke's great for the next 2 game weeks. Darwin Núñez is chaotic, explosive, but it's either feast or famine with him. You never know what you're going to get. Isak, of course, I completely agree with 100%. Same with Gvardiol, and going for a Man United defender like Maguire is on the right track. I just think Dalot or Onana is the best way to cover the Red Devils' defence. And then Pickford, I mean, Everton just conceded 6 goals, but Pickford remains a decent goalkeeper in FPL, but I'd probably go in a different direction with the likes of Dubravka, Onana, and David Raya. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below about Drafthound's team and also how it compares to my squad. But let's now move on to FPL.team and discuss the starting 11 and the captaincy. In goal, I would go for David Raya with that double game week. Aitner, if he's fit, would be in my wildcard team, and I'd go for Dalot and Gabriel as the back 3. Eze, Salah, Saka and Foden would be the midfield 4, and the forward line would comprise of Mateta, Isak and Haaland, and the bench has Dubravka, Palmer, Gvardiol and Gusto. Now, in terms of the captaincy, I still back Salah to be the best option on paper, but in terms of the vice captaincy, I have switched from Saka to Eze. That's something I would consider, and Eze could even be your main captain. With those 2 home games, I think Eze could be a great differential. Even Elise or Mateta could be a shout, and the same goes, of course, for the likes of Cunha, if you're able to afford him over Mateta. Now, for Game Week 36 and 35, what you could do is move one of Saka or Salah to Heung-min Son, and with my budget it makes sense to sell Salah. You wouldn't be able to afford Saka to Salah. I think I'd be 0.9 million short, for example, and that's where it's all about balance and the way you prioritize certain doubles. So if you wanted more Spurs players for the double against Arsenal and Chelsea, you could go for James Maddison as well. So you go for Heung-min Son from the get-go, you don't go for Saka, and instead you start Cole Palmer away to Arsenal, and then going into Game Week 35 you've already got Son in place. You can vice captain him if you wish, and then you can add James Maddison for Mohamed Salah as one particular example. But that double isn't great for Spurs. If you were to go for 2 or 3 players from Tottenham, it would be for Double Game Week 37. They've got Burnley and Man City at home, and they finished the season with Sheffield United away. So it's all about balance and prioritising. Let me know what you do down the comment section below if there are any changes you would make to this wildcard. But if I'm being completely honest, the best time to wildcard, if you still have the chip, is Game Week 35, especially if you're looking to bench boost in Game Week 37 like myself. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's get this video to over 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 25,000 subscribers and beyond. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships Discord server, the FPL League, FPL Challenge League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify and Amazon Music. Leave a 5-star review on those platforms. I wish you all the best of luck for Double Game Week 34 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.